Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to change the character mesh in Survival Game Kit V2. This video is only for Unreal Engine 5. If you're using Unreal Engine 4, I will have a link to the video you need to follow in the description. You will need a 3D modeling program to follow this video. I'm going to be using 3ds Max to cut out the character's first person arms, but you can use whatever program you're comfortable with. Before we get started, this video is for people that are using characters that do not use the Unreal Engine 4 skeleton. If your character does use the Unreal Engine 4 skeleton, then you can click the link in the description and there will be a video specifically for Unreal Engine 4 skeleton characters. If you're not sure, you can go to your character. So for me, that's the new character folder. Open up your skeleton, and in here you can see the skeleton structure of this character. And then if we open up the skeleton for our Survival Game Kit character, so Survival Game Kit, then Meshes, Skeletal, and scroll to the bottom, you can find the UE4 mannequin. Just open that up. So if your new character's skeleton looks like this character's does, minus these slots here, you won't have those or these or these. So if you have the same sort of structure, the same names, you're probably using an Unreal Engine 4 character. If you are, you need to use the video linked in the description below. That's a much faster video because we don't have to do things like retargeting. Whereas because we're in this video using a non-UE4 character, we're going to have to do retargeting and changing bone names and things like that. So to get started, we're going to close both of these skeletons and you're going to go to the folder that has your new character in. Then when you're in there, right click and go to animation, then create a new IK rig. Then select your character's skeletal mesh. So for me, that's this CH31. We'll select that. I'm going to name this retarget target, and we'll open that up. I'm just going to drag mine up to the top here. Now, before we start in here, we're also going to go back to our showcase. Then in the skeletal folder inside of Survival Game Kit, we're going to scroll up and find the retarget source, and we'll open that as well. Now this is a file that comes with Survival Game Kit and it gives us these chains, and basically these are used to retarget our character. You can see that we've got one for spine, our arms, legs, heads, and then all of our individual fingers. We're going to need to add these to our retarget here, so we'll start now. Now I'm using a Mixamo character from Adobe Mixamo. You are probably using a different type of character, so your bones are going to have their own names. I'm just going to give you the general guide of how we're going to group bones together. So to start with, I'm going to select my first spine bone here, and then you want to select the end spine bone. So for me, that's spine 2. And you want to hold shift, and when you do that, it selects all the spine bones for us. So we'll right click, go down to new retarget chain from selected bones, and we're going to call this spine. So we'll hit OK, and you can see that we've now got that spine chain here, and that has all of our spine bones selected. Then we're going to do the same thing with our neck and head bones. So I'm going to select my first neck bone, then you're going to want to select the end head bone. So for me, that's this one here. Then we'll right click, do new target chain from selected bones, and we're going to call this head, like that. Then I'm going to select my left shoulder. So that's the bone here you can see starting at left shoulder. Yours might be called something different. You want to select whatever bone that is that starts here, and then you want to have this select down to the left hand. So again, hold shift, click left hand, then right click, new retarget chain. We're going to call this left arm, like that. Then we're going to do the same thing with the right shoulder. So right shoulder, hold shift, right hand, right click, new retarget chain, and we call this right arm, and hit OK. Then we're going to do the same thing for our legs. So I'm going to scroll down. You can see I've got left up leg, and that's our sort of hip bone here. And then we're going to go down to the left foot. So I'm going to hold shift and do the left foot. I'm not going to do the toes here. I'm going to leave those alone. All I want is the hip bone to the actual foot bone, and that's all. So we'll right click and do new retarget chain. And I'm going to call this left leg. And we'll do the same with right. So right up leg, and I'm going to go down to right foot, right click, and then do new retarget chain, and we'll call this right leg, like that, and hit OK. Next we're going to do each individual finger. So we'll start off with the left hand here. So I'm just going to point my camera here. We'll scroll up to the top, and you can see that we've got bones for all of our left hand fingers. Now you might only have 3 bones for your character per finger. I have 4. Now we're going to need to rename these in a chain that's the same as our retarget source. You can see if I make this a little bit bigger, we have all of the names here. So what I'm going to do is just select the name here, do Control A, Control C to copy the name, then go back to the retarget source, the retarget target, and then we're going to find the index finger. So we'll go to the left hand index. I'm going to select the first finger bone, then hold shift and do the last finger bone. Then we'll right click, new target chain, and I'm going to paste in that name that I copied from our source and hit OK. Then we'll go back to source, copy the next one, so Control A, Control C. Then we want to find the middle finger, so go to left hand middle, hold shift to the last middle bone, then new chain, and we'll paste that name in like that. And we're basically just going to keep doing that for each finger. So we'll do the pinky finger, and we want to find the pinky finger bone here, then hold shift to the last bone, then create new chain, paste that name in, and then the next one, which is ring, copy that name, and we want to find ring and shift click, new chain, paste that name in, and then we want the thumb, so copy that, and we want the thumb, so thumb 1 down to the last thumb bone, and then create a new chain, and we'll paste that name in here as well, like that. Next we're going to do the right hand, so we'll just move the camera over here, we'll go to our retarget source again, and we're just going to copy the right hand index finger, go back to our target, then we want to scroll down and we want to find the right hand index finger, hold shift, select all the bones, do new chain, and we'll paste that name in there. Then the next one is our middle finger, so we'll copy that. Then we want right hand middle, create a new chain, paste that name in. Then the next one is our pinky, so we'll find the pinky, select those bones and do a new chain, paste that in. And then we want ring, so we'll find the right hand ring, new chain, paste that name in, hit OK. And then lastly we've got our thumb, so copy that, find the thumb, select all those thumb bones, new chain, then we can paste that in and hit OK. Now don't forget to save, because if the engine crashes you'll have to restart and do all of that again. Next we're going to scroll up and we're going to select the hips. Now for me they're called hips, they might be called something different on your character, but you want to select the hips bone. We're going to right click and then we're going to do set retarget route, like that. Then we'll save. And now we can just close out our retarget target and our retarget source. Now in our new character folder we're going to right click, go to animation, then we're going to go to IK retargeter, and we're going to select the retarget source, and then we'll open it up, and I'm just going to drag mine up to the top here. Now we need to set our target in the target option here, so we'll click the drop down. You can see we've got our retarget target, so we'll select that, and actually brings in our character next to our UE4 mannequin. So now the first thing we need to do is we need to make our new character's pose as close as possible to our mannequin's pose. The closer we can get this, the better our animations are going to look when we retarget them. So for me, my character's in a T pose, yours might not be, yours might be in an A pose as well. If it is, then great, you can just make small tweaks to try and get your character as close as possible to the mannequin. But for me, I need to change this to an A pose, otherwise our animations aren't going to work. So I'm going to click edit pose, and I'm going to select our shoulder bone tip, and I'm just going to move them down, say about 40 degrees and 40 degrees this way. Now, the more time you spend here getting these bones on your new character as close as possible to this, the better your animations are going to look. And there's some tools that we can use to help us. So we have an offset here that if we move, you can see we can adjust the position of our character. What I like to do is change this to 0. You can see that now we're overlapping our mannequin. And we can also change this to the scale of our character. Again, this is just preview, it won't affect your animations or your character, but it'll just help us adjust the bones. As you can see, our mannequin's much taller, so I'm going to make my character a little bit bigger, say 0.4. That's a little bit too big, so we'll do 0.3, and we'll do a little bit more, so something like that. You can see that now we're at the same height as the mannequin. This just makes it a little bit easier to line up our bones. So you can see that our mannequin actually bends its arm. So I'm going to do the same thing with my character, say about 20 degrees. And then I'm going to do the same thing in this side as well, so about 20 degrees. So for me, this is fine. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time tweaking this. I recommend you pause the video and spend as much time as you need getting all the bones lined up as closely as possible. One thing to keep in mind is when you hit edit pose, you can see it actually moves the character back. When we click it again, it moves the character forward. I think this might be a bug, so when you are adjusting the bones, just keep in mind that when you stop editing your pose, it will actually move back a little bit. So now I'm ready to actually test our animations to make sure they all play okay. So I'm going to move my character back over to the side, so we'll just move it over here a little bit. And we can select an animation to preview. So I'm just going to select, say, the aim forward rifle. You can see that just with a little bit of time spent tweaking the arms, you see that our character actually matches up pretty well to our mannequin. And the longer you spend, the better your animations are going to look. But for me, this is fine. So I'm ready to actually retarget all of my animations now. So all I'm going to do is select the top one, do Control A to select all of them. We're going to do Export Selected Animations. I recommend you create a new folder for this because it's going to create a bunch of new animations. I'm going to select my new character folder, do New Folder, and say Animations. Animations, like that. And we'll select that and hit OK. Now it's going to retarget all those animations. This might take a moment, so just let it do its thing. So once it's done, it's taken me to the animations folder. We've got all of our retargeted animations here. First thing I recommend doing is saving all, just in case you get a crash. You don't want all of these animations to disappear. Now, one annoying thing about the new animation retargeter is it only retargets sequences and montages. It won't do blend spaces and it won't do aim offsets. So we have to manually do those. So what we'll do is go to the Survival Game Kit folder, animations, then we want to find blend spaces. And in here, we're just going to do Control A, select all of our blend spaces, right click, go up to retarget animation assets, duplicate and retarget animation assets. And in here, we need to pick our retargeter. So that's this one here. We're going to change the folder that we want to send these files to, and we'll pick new character, then our animations, and I'm going to hit OK. Then we're going to retarget. And again, this might take a moment. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing with our aim offsets. So we'll go back to Survival Game Kit, animations, then to aim offsets, and in here we're just going to select the AO hands and rifle, just control click to select both of those, right click, then go to the retarget animations, duplicate retarget animation assets, then the IK, select our new IK retargeter, change the folder, and we'll go to the animations folder and hit OK, then retarget. So now again, I recommend saving all, just in case you get a crash, you don't want all those animations to disappear. So now we need to retarget our animation blueprints. So we'll go to Survival Game Kit, Animations. We're going to start with the third person character one. So we're going to right click it. Then we're going to go to the Retarget Animation Assets, duplicate and retarget. Select our IK retargeter like before. And in here we want to untick Remap Referenced Assets. And we're going to change the folder. I'm actually going to make a new folder. So we'll select Animations, right click, do New Folder, and call this Anim Blueprints. Just so they're easier to find, we'll select that and hit OK. And we'll do retarget and give this a set. So now you can see it's taken me to the new character, animations, animation blueprints. We've got our third person animation blueprint that we can open up now. Now we're going to need to make a few changes in here, starting with these warnings. So I'm just going to click the top one. You can see it's taken us to this node here. So with that selected, we're just going to need to change the names that are listed inside these nodes. So we'll select this first node here. And you can see currently it's set to pelvis. For me, the bone is going to be called hips because that's the equivalent bone. Yours might be called something different, so you're just going to need to look at your character. If you want to see your character's bone names here, that makes it a bit easier. You can go to character, then bones, bone names, and you can see all of your bone names on the character. You can see that my pelvis is called hips, so we're going to change this to hips. Then up here, we're going to change spine 1, which is our base spine. Mine is just called spine, so I'm going to change this to spine. Then spine 3 is the top spine bone, so for me that's called spine 2. So I'm going to change this to spine 2. Then we'll compile, and that will get rid of those warnings on these nodes. Then we'll head down here, select this one. Again, this is spine, so we want spine, and that's your bottom spine bone. Then here we want spine 2, which will be your middle spine bone. If you have more than 3 spine bones, just pick the one that's in the middle for this. So for me, that's going to be spine 1. And then we want our last spine bone. So for me, that's spine 2. So we want spine 2, and we'll compile. Now you can see we've got a node here, and if I select it, we've got an option for head at the top here. Now my bone on my character is called head. If yours isn't, you will have to change these. So if you have nodes that look like this and it says bone head on them, you'll need to select them and change the bone here to whatever your bonehead name is. So we'll move on to the next one, and we've got 2 bone IK. So here we want to select that. We want to change the IK bone to our right hand. This would be the bone name for whatever your right hand is called. And again, we've got a head here, so if your head is something different, you will need to change this. And the rest is okay, so we can just compile. Move on to this node. Again, we've got right hand, so sets to right hand like that. And we've got upper arm, so for me, that's going to be the right arm bone here, but you're going to want your top of your arm bone here. So I'm going to change mine to right arm, like that. And then we'll compile just to make sure that's okay. And then we'll move on to the next one. So at the top, we've got right hand again. We'll set this to right hand, and the rest seems okay. Then we'll move on to this one, and this one's right hand again. So right hand, set that. Then we've got the left hand, so we need to select the left hand here. Set that to left hand, and then we want right hand down here. So right hand, set that, and then we've got clavicle. So this is kind of the bone inside your torso that's connected to the rest of your arm. For me, the clavicle left is called left shoulder, so that's what I'm going to use. And we want left shoulder. Again, this will be whatever the bone is on your character that's roughly around here, that connects to the spine and connects to the rest of the arm. So now I'm just going to compile to make sure we get rid of those warnings, and we'll move on to the next one. So we've got another one for our left hand, so we'll select that. We'll search for hand left, or left hand, sorry. Left hand, and we'll set that, and we'll compile again. And there should be a couple more down here. We'll select this one and make sure that this top one is set to left hand, and the one down here is set to right hand, like that. And this one, again, we've got clavicle, so this will be our left shoulder, like that. And then we'll compile to get rid of the warnings. And then we've got one more here, so we need to change this to left hand, like that, and compile. Now we've gotten rid of all those warnings. If you have some extra warnings, you'll need to go to those nodes and just check the settings here. They'll have a drop down with bone names. You will need to find whatever the equivalent bone that's listed here is for your character. Like I said, if you do have a different head bone, you may have some extra nodes with warnings that you'll have to select and change the head bone to whatever your head bone is called. Now we need to change a couple more nodes, so we're going to go down and we're going to find any layer blend per bone nodes. So we'll scroll down, see we've got one here, so we'll select that, click through the drop down here until we get to the name, and see that this is set to name _ 01, but my name or my neck bone is called neck, so I'm going to change this to neck. You will want to change this to whatever the first neck bone is called, so for me that's neck. I'm just going to leave that as that. We'll scroll down a bit more. We've got another one here. Again, this is called neck, so I'm just going to change mine to neck, like that. And I think there's another one here. This is spine 01, so for me that's my spine here, and that's just your bottom spine bone. So the first spine bone, make sure you spell it correct, because if you don't, it won't work, like that. And I think that's, oh no, we have some extra ones here. So you can see we've got the clavicle L again, so that's the left shoulder for me, so left shoulder, like that. And we've got another one here, and this is just spine 01 again, so for me that's spine, like that. And that should be all of them. Make sure that when you are renaming them, they're exactly the same as the bone name that you want it to use, and make sure that they are the bones that are the equivalent on your character. And again, we'll just compile and save this just in case we get any crashes. We don't want to lose our work. You see that my head has gone really big here, and the reason for that is we don't have a aim offset set here at the moment, which we will do in a minute. So you can see currently it's set to our old character's aim offset. We're going to change this now. Just go to AO hands, like that. You can see that our head is no longer big, and that's just by selecting this variable and changing this to the correct aim offset. And you can see it's our character because in the little thumbnail here it looks different from the mannequin. So now we're just going to go through our animations that we have set in here and make sure they're all set correctly. So we'll scroll down. I'm just going to hide this and this so we can find the animations easier. You see that currently it's just set to all of our mannequin animations, so we just need to go through and change them to our new characters ones. So you can see that it's got the same name and then retargeted at the end. So we're just going to go through and select all of these nice and quick. And we'll start with the standard animations. We'll just do change this to hands, and because this is just for upper body, we don't actually need to change any of these. So we'll just copy the standard animations and paste them into aimed and combat like that. That just means that we can set animations once in the standard animations, and then we can paste them into these two nice and quick. So down here we've got standard animations. Again, we want the idle, so A idle hands. You want to use the A idle hands retargeted, so it says retargeted at the end. And we'll do the same with our blend space, so we'll select that one. These won't have retargeted on the end because of the way we retargeted them, but you just want to select the one with your character's icon. Then for hands, we want to find our crouch retargeted hands, which is here, and then we'll do the same thing with our blend space. And then we can just copy standard animations here, paste them into combat/aimed like that. And then lastly, we've got our turn in place animations, so we want to switch these over to our new characters. So we want the right 90 retarget, then we want the left 90 retargeted, then we want the crouch turn right retargeted, and the crouch turn left retargeted. So now we've got all of our animations set, we can just test this out. So I'll compile and save, and I'll hit play. And first we need to actually set our mesh in our character, so we'll do that now. We'll go to the Survival Game Kit, Blueprints, Characters, then to our SGK Master Character. In here we'll go to the Viewport. I'm just going to select the Mesh component here. And over here we want to find our new character mesh, so for me that is the CH31. And then we need to set the Anim class. Now our new character's animation class is actually called the same as the mannequin's one. So what we'll do is just rename this. So we'll go back to our content browser, select our new third person animation blueprint, do rename, and I'm just going to add retargeted to the end so it's easier to select. Then we'll go back to our master character, Anim class, and we'll search for retarget, and we want our third person Anim retarget. You can see that it's now playing the animations. We can compile and save this. And now we can test this out. So I'm going to hit play, and you can see that when I go side to side, our character is doing this. Now, if yours isn't doing that and it's just rotating in the yaw and not kind of pivoting around like this, then yours is okay. But if yours is doing this, we just need to change something in the third person character blueprint. So we'll go back to our third person character blueprint, and in here we need to change this node, and there's another one down here. All we need to do is we need to change this, do expose PIM, unplug this, plug this into pitch, and do the same thing here. Expose as PIM, unplug this into pitch and plug it into pitch, Then we'll compile and we can test this. And now when I look side to side, our character is actually rotating side to side. Again, if you didn't have that problem, you don't need to do that change. It will break your character if you do that. So if yours was like this at the beginning, then you're all good. The next thing you need to do is go back to our third person Anim blueprint, and we need to change the max turn angle. So we'll click the drop down for turn in place here and select this variable here. Scroll down and we want to change this to 54 and compile and save this. Then we'll hit play and we should see our montages play correctly. Now there's a couple of things that we need to check inside our new character skeleton. So we'll go there, that's in my new character folder, and we'll open up the skeleton. Now in here we need to go to Windows and we need to open up the Anim slot manager. And in here you can see that we've got all of the slots, but they're not in the right group. They're all under default group. So what we need to do is add a group for each one of these slots. So to do that, we'll just create a new group. I'm going to call this upper body pre-AO group, like that. Then we're going to select the upper body pre-AO, right click it, set the group to the upper body pre-AO group, like that. Now we're just going to do the same thing for each one of these slots. So add a new group, call this upper body left arm group, and we want to move the left arm to the left arm group. And then we'll do the same thing with upper body post AO, so upper body post AO group, and we'll move that over here to the post AO group, and then the same for our lower body, so we'll just call this lower body group, and we'll right click and move that to the lower body group like that. So when you're done, it should look like this. Next, we're going to go back to the showcase and we need to fix a couple of the turn in place animations for crouching. So for that, we'll go to the animations folder and I'm just going to search for turn, and that will bring up these two animations here. We'll start with the crouch turn left, so I'll open that up. You can see that the animation is kind of floating in the sky. I'm not sure why the retargeting does this to some animations, but to fix it, all we need to do is stop the animation playing, select the hip bones, and we want to move these down so that our feet are on the ground, something like that. Then press the key button and save. We'll do the same thing with the turn right, so we'll open that up. See he's floating in the air. We'll select the hips, press W, make sure the animation is not playing, and move it down to about here, and press key, and then save that. Now for the next part, I'm going to be exporting our character to a 3D modeling program where we're going to cut out the arms for our first person view. I'm going to be using 3ds Max because that's the modeling program I use. You may be using a different program. If you are, you'll have to look up how to do that specifically for your program. I don't use other 3D modeling programs, so I don't know how to do this in those, but I will be showing you how to do it in 3ds Max. So to get started, we'll go to our showcase, and then we want to go to our new character folder. I'm just going to get rid of this search. We're going to right click our character mesh, right click on there, go to asset actions, then export, and we're going to go, I'm just going to export mine to the desktop here. So we're just going to click save, and it will bring up this little window here. I'm going to tick off vertex, color, and level of detail because we don't need those, and also tick off collision, we don't need those either, and then we'll hit export. So now I'm going to open up 3ds Max and import our character there. So now to import our character, all I'm going to do is drag in the FBX file that we just exported from Unreal, drag that in, let go and do import file, give it a second to load up. And you can see I've got my character here. I like to center it exactly in the world, so I'm just going to click S, and that will bring up the snapping, and I'm going to snap it to the center like that. And now we've got our character selected here. Now the first thing I'm going to do in 3ds Max, again I don't know about other modeling programs, is this bone here we need to delete. So we'll just delete that. You can see that now we've got our mesh here, and then the rest of our skeleton is underneath hips. That's very important. If you don't do that, when you re-import this into Unreal, you're going to have a lot of problems. Next we're going to select the mesh, so you can just select it here, and we're going to go over to the modifier panel and select the editable mesh modifier, then select the yes. Then I'm going to press 5 on my keyboard, and I'm just going to highlight all of the parts of the body I don't want. So this part here, you might have to do this by pressing 4 instead if yours doesn't like neatly cut off the arms. So you can do something like this, and we want to select the head as well, like that. We're going to hit delete, and that's going to delete the rest of our body for us. Then we're going to just, oh, I forgot the feet here, so make sure you get all of the rest of the body apart from our arms. Then we're going to select we're going to do Control A to select all of the polygons, then go to skin, and now that skin modifier will be applied to our arms. Now we're ready to just do Control A, and we can export this. So go to File, then go to Export, Export selected, and I'm just going to do mine on my desktop here. I'll call it ch_31_first person. That's just the same as my third person name, so that's what I'm calling it. So I'll do save, and that's going to bring up this little window here. Make sure you have smoothing groups ticked on, and go down to animation. I'm going to have mine ticked off for this, so we can just hit OK. We'll get a warning. Yours might not do, but mine does. That's fine. We'll just hit OK, and now we're ready to go back to Unreal Engine. So back in Unreal, I'm going to go to my new character folder. In here, we're going to do import, and I'm going to import that first person mesh, hit open, and you can see it's actually picked up our skeleton for us. If yours doesn't, you want to find your new character skeleton and select it. Then we want all of these ticked on. I'm going to go down, and I'm actually not going to create a material, so we want do not create material. We already have the materials for our third person. We'll just reuse those. And I'm also going to untick import textures. If yours is grayed out or you don't have these options, don't worry, you can just leave them, and we'll do import all. You can see that that's brought in our first person arms that we've just cut out. Mine has automatically picked up its material, but if yours doesn't, you can open them up, and in here you can select the material that you want to select for your arms. So next we need to set up our first person animation blueprint. So we'll go back to showcase, then we'll go to survival game kit, animations, then we want the first person arms. We'll right click it, go up to retarget, duplicate and retarget, select our IK retargeter, and then change the folder. I'm going to pick the animation Anim blueprints folder, and I'm going to untick remap referenced assets and do retarget. And that's going to create us a new first person Anim blueprint. I'm just going to add the retargeted to the end of the name. So retargeted, like that, and we'll open it up. Then we're going to compile, and that's going to give us all of the nodes that we need to rename again. So we'll just click the top one, and that will take us over here. And we'll start with this first one here. So we'll select that. You can see it's set to head. If you have a different head bone, you'll need to change that. So for tip bone, we need right hand. So right hand, then we want upper arm R. So for me, that's going to be right arm. So I'm going to search for right arm. And again, if you want to show your bone names on here, you can do that by going to bone and then bone names. That way you can see which bone is where. Then if we scroll down, that should all be okay. So let's compile. That's fine. This node here needs to be hand. So we'll do right hand, just like that. And we'll compile and see if that gets rid of that warning. If yours doesn't, you need to go to, I believe it's the joint here, change this to parent. Sorry, not the joint, change that back to world space. We'll scroll up for effector location space, change this to component, or sorry, parent bone. Then here you can see it's set to clavicle right. Just click this little button and then change this back to world space like that. Then we can compile and it should get rid of that warning. Actually, I did make one mistake here. This joint target location space, that should be set to the component space like that. And we'll just compile that. Then we'll move on to the next one. So over here, we've got right hand. So this needs to be right hand like that. Do we have any others? No, so we'll compile and that should get rid of that one. We'll move on to this one. This needs to be right hand like that. And we'll compile again. And then we'll move on to this. We want left hand, so hand left, or sorry, left hand. We go, and then right hand, and then clavicle. So for me, that is we want the left clavicle, so left shoulder for me. And of course, your equivalent bone sort of here, and that should be fine. So we'll compile that. And we've got another one here for left hand, so left hand and compile. And we've got a couple more down here, so left hand again and compile. Oh, there's still some other ones here, so we've got right hand and clavicle left, so again left shoulder, and that should get rid of that warning. And then this one over here for left hand, so left hand like that. If we compile, should get rid of that. So now we just need to do our layer blend per bone node. So we'll start with this one, which I believe is the first one. So we'll select this. This needs to be neck for me. If you remember, that's the first neck bone you have on your character. And moving down, we've got another one here. This needs to be neck as well. And another one here. This needs to be your first spine bone. So for me, that's spine. And moving on down here, that's the last of it. So now we can compile and save. Next, we need to set the animations. So we'll go to class defaults. We'll make this a bit bigger. You can see we're currently using the mannequin one, so we need to change this to our character's versions. So retargeted, retargeted, and retargeted. Moving down here, we've got the upper body. So for standard, we want hands idle, but we want the retargeted one, so we'll keep going down, retargeted, and then the same for here, we want forward, hands, jog, retargeted, so this one. Then we can just copy this, close it, and paste these into here and to here. Then we'll do the same down here, so we want retargeted, retargeted, and this one here. And then we can compile and save this. Now we can set up our first person arms inside our character. So we'll go back to the SGK master character. We're going to select our first person arms here. I'm going to change this to the new arms that we imported. So for me, that's CH31. And you can see that they've kind of gone small and down here for some reason. But if we go to the Anim class and we change this to retargeted, we want our first person arms Anim retargeted. You can see that it hasn't actually updated, so we'll just save this, close it, and we'll go to that, to our character again. So blueprints, characters, open that up, then go to viewport, and you can see that our first person arms are there and they are working correctly. So next we need to do our first person body. So what we'll do is select it in here. You can see first person body here, and we're going to change the mesh to just our normal third person character mesh. So for me that's CH31. You can see that he's T-posed at the moment because we haven't set up our third person body yet, but we will. Then we need to go into our construction script, and in here we need to change this to whatever your top spine bone is on your character. So for me that's spine 2, but if we head to our character over here, you can just check is whatever the top spine bone is, and you want that to be set on this node here. Then we're going to go back to showcase, and we're going to go to survival game kit, animations, then to the first person body animation blueprint here. Right click it, go to retarget, duplicate animations, and we want our IK retargeter. Change the folder to our animations and blueprints. Make sure you untick remap referenced assets and retarget. You can see that's created us a new first person, where is it? First person body here. I'm just going to rename it to add that retargeted at the end, like that. And we'll open that up. And in here, we're just going to compile, and that will find all of the nodes that we need to change. So we'll start with this one, spine, so the first spine bone. Then we've got spine 2, so for me that's spine 1. And then spine 3 will be your last spine bone, so for me that's spine 2. And we'll compile, just get rid of those. And we'll zoom out, and you can see we've got some extra nodes up here that we're going to need to change. So we'll start with this one. This will be spine 1, or spine for me. This will be our last spine bone, so for me that's spine 2. And then we've got some over here, so again the first spine bone, and this is going to be whatever your middle spine bone is, so for me that will be spine 1. And we'll compile. We've got another one down here, so this is currently set to pelvis. We need to change it to our hip bone, so whatever your hip bone is, we'll change it there and do compile. And that should get rid of all the warnings. If you have additional warnings, you have to go to that node and do what we've done before, change the bone name to your equivalent character's bone. Now if you remember this, we modified the rotate root bone in our third person animation blueprint. I need to do the same in here. Again, if you did not have that problem when we turned in place where the character went all wobbly, you don't need to do this, but if you did have that problem, you will need to. So we just expose pin, plug this and plug this into pitch, and we do the same thing down here and plug that in here. Again, if you didn't need to do this when we did it before in the third person animation blueprint, you don't need to do it now. This is just because my character has a different bone rotation, and that will stop it going wonky when we turn in place. So now we can compile this, and we need to set our animations. So we'll go to class defaults. In here we'll just hide these two, and in here we need to change this to our AO hands, and then like we've done before, we can just go through, change all of these to the retargeted version. In here, lower body, we can change this to hands idle retargeted. Here we want this to be jog hands, and then the same here. We'll scroll down, find the crouch idle hands retarget, and then the same here as well. We want the hands like that, and we can just copy the standard animation. So do copy, paste them onto here like that. Then we need to do upper body. We'll just set this to the idle, so find retargeted idle, and we'll just copy this and paste this onto aimed and onto combat like that. Then we've just got a turn in place animation, so we'll change these over to the correct ones. So the first one is right, make sure you select the right option. Then the second one is left, so we want left. Then we want the stand up ones, so right, this one, and then our left one is this one here. So once you've done that, we can compile and save this. Next, we just need to do our layer blend per bone nodes. So there's a couple of them in here. If we go down, there's one here that we need to change to our neck bone. So neck, like that. Again, this is the base or the first neck bone. We can just turn on our bone names here. That's just the bone here. Then moving down, we need to do the same thing with our spine. So whatever your first spine bone is called, you need to set that there, and then we'll compile. You can see that now my character's gone a bit wonky. Yours might not do. Ideally, what should happen is your character should be bent backwards a bit. So to adjust this, I'm actually going to turn the bones off now because it's a bit hard to see. So to adjust this, we're going to use these two nodes. You can see I get a rotation here. I can actually control my character's rotation. So I'm going to rotate him back about this far, and I'm actually going to set the X to minus 38, and we'll set the Z to 0 and the Y to 0 as well. And then this node here, we're just going to use this to straighten our character up a bit. So it should look a bit like this, where the character's kind of leaning back like that. You can just use these two nodes to control it. So it should look a bit like this. We'll just compile and save this now. Now we can go back to our SGK master character, then to the viewport, and we're going to select our first person body, and then here we're going to set the Anim class. We'll just search for retarget, and we'll select the first person body Anim retargeted, and compile and save that. And you can see that now it's playing our animations correctly. So now all of our basic movement animations are set up. We do need to set up our sockets on our new character so we can attach items to this character. So to do that, go to your character's skeleton and also open up the skeleton from Survival Game Kit. So go to Survival Game Kit, Meshes, Skeletal, and scroll to the bottom here and open that up. In here, we want to find these sockets here. Select the top one, the R socket one, and hold shift and then click the flashlight one. Right click, copy selected sockets, then go to your skeleton, find your right hand bone, so that's here for me. Right click on it and do paste sockets to selected bone. Now we'll add all of those sockets to our right hand. Now we need to add a couple more, so we'll go back to our character skeleton here, and I'm going to select the primary socket and secondary. Right click and do copy selected sockets. Go back to your character and find the top spine bone. So for me that would be spine 2. Right click and do paste sockets to selected bone. And that's going to add all of the sockets that we attach weapons to when we hold them to our hand, and then the sockets for when they're on our character's back. Now, by default, these probably won't be in the right position, and we can see that if I just right click our primary socket here, add a preview asset, and I search for, say, M4. Open that up, you can see that this is giving us a preview of what the M4 will look like when we attach it. Obviously, this isn't correct. You'll want to go through each one of these sockets and just adjust them to make them look better. So maybe it's something like this, and you probably want it a bit closer to the character. You have to do the same for the secondary. If you want to get rid of this preview, by the way, you can right click, do remove all attached assets, and it will get rid of that. So this would be a good point for your primary socket, and then you do the same with the secondary. And then for each one of these are attached to your hand. This is what the position will be when you attach something to that socket. So for example, for the M4, it uses the M4 socket. So we'll right click and do add preview asset, search for M4 again. You can see this is where, or the direction the M4 will be facing when we hold it. So what we want to do is probably adjust this to not be that way around. So something like that. And then we can adjust it to go, say, down and to the hand a little bit more like that. And you can always come back in here and adjust it if it's not, or if it doesn't look good in game. So something like that roughly. And if you want to, you can adjust it further. And you will need to do the same basically for each socket, and you want to add the preview for whatever it is. So for the axe, you'd want to add preview asset, search for axe, and attach the axe and see what it looks like and adjust it however you need to. Now, once you've set up your sockets, we're ready to actually set the animations in the holdable blueprints. So to do that, we'll go to the content browser, then in the survival game kit, go to blueprints, then to the items, holdable items, and in here are all our blueprints for our holdable items. Now, I'm not going to be going through each one of these and setting all of the animations, just purely because that would take quite a while, and it's a pretty simple process. You just go to each one of these holdable blueprints, go to the class defaults, and in here you can see that we've got animations set. Currently they're using our mannequin animations. You'll need to go through and change these over, like we've done before, to the retargeted version with your character as the thumbnail on the pictures. And you'll need to go through and do this for all of the animations in each one of the holdables. Now you can speed this up. If you go and set the animations inside the master holdable blueprint here, in its class defaults, a lot of the holdable blueprints are actually using the animations set in here, so this will actually make the process quicker. But you will still need to go through each one of these blueprints and make sure that the animations are set to your character's new retargeted animations. Now once you've done that, there's one other place that we need to set animations, and that's in the item list. So we'll go to the items folder, then to item list, and in here you can see that we've got weapons, we've also got holdables. You'll need to go through each one of these, and in the holdable details you'll find the equip montage and the unequip montage. If they're hidden, you just click the drop down here and you can open them up just by clicking the little arrows, and over here you can set the montage, and we just need to set this to our retargeted version. So that would be the AM equipped item retargeted, and it's the same for the unequipped montage. So the exact same montage. You will need to go through each one and change them for each item that is either a weapon or a holdable. Now finally, once you've switched over all of your animations and you go and pick up, say, an M4 for example, I have actually changed the animations inside the M4 just so I can test this out. If we go down, you can see I've changed the animations over. If we hit play and I run over to the M4 here and I just hold it, you can see my animation plays. You can see that my M4 is kind of in a weird place. Now that's because of the IKs that are set up for our weapons, and those IKs set the position that our weapon's going to be in. Now because we're using a new character, we're going to have to reset up those IKs. So to do that, I'm going to add a link in the description of this video for both ranged weapons and melee weapons, and I'll link to the exact point in the video that you can follow along to adjust where your M4 or your axe, for example, is positioned when your character is holding them. But I recommend doing the IKs last after you've already set all of your animations in your holdables down here, because you will need your correct animation set before you can adjust the IKs. Now when you do decide to adjust the IKs, whenever you do it for any of our ranged weapons or the melee weapons, you'll want to go to the holdable, you want to search for IK, you want to tick on debug hand IK, and you want to use this whenever you're adjusting this weapon's IK. So for example the M4. Down here you want to reset these to 0, like that, and you'll also want to do the same for the hand aimed IKs here. So you want to reset these to 0, and then when you're ready to actually start adjusting them in game, you go to the master character, so the survival game kit master character. You want to select the first person AO, make sure it's 0, 0, 0 in location and 0, 0, 0 in rotation. And then do the same thing with the third person AO. You can see that it's not at 0, 0 for me, so I'm just going to click the reset arrow here, and now you're ready to actually position your IKs. Now we've got a couple of final steps. We're going to head back to our retargeted animation blueprint. So I'm just going to get rid of this search, go to new character, animations, then animation blueprint. We're going to open up the third person animation blueprint, go to the event graph, and in here we want to go to update anims, then to update anim variables, and in here we'll go to the holdable item anim variables, and in here we've got a couple of nodes that we want to change. So here you can see it's set to hand underscore R. I'm going to change this to my right hand bone name, so it'll be right hand for me, and it will be whatever your right hand bone name is, and we'll do the same for down here as well. So I'll just paste that in, compile and save that. Then we'll do the same thing in the first person. So we'll just head over to the first person arms animation blueprint, event graph, holdables, then we want to go, oh sorry, not holdables, we want to go to the per frame, then update animation variables, and in here we want to go to holding item anim variables, and we want to find that same node over here. We're just going to change this to right hand like that, and then we'll compile and save this. Then we're going to go to the character component, so we'll just head over to survival game kit, blueprints, components, and you'll find it up here. And in here we'll go to the event graph, then go to frame checks, then clipping checks, and in here we want to find this node here. We just want to change this again to right hand like that, and compile and save this. And then lastly, there's a component inside our character here, the third person AO that we reset the location for. Now if your head bone is just called head, that's fine, it'll say head here. If your head bone is called something else, you'll need to attach this to that head bone. So you can just click here, search for your head bone and select it, and then it will be attached to that. And just as a side note before we finished, if you still have a problem with your turn in place animations when you're crouching, floating you up in the air, so if I go to mine, if I search for turn, and you can see that if I open up the montage, I'm still floating in the air, even though if I open up the left 90 degrees, which is this one here, you can see we're on the ground. All you need to do is restart the engine, just save everything, restart the engine, and that will refresh the montage and it will be working correctly. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you guys found it useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment.